1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Royal Blue Podcast Soundcheck. Thursday show live. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Hello and welcome to the Royal Blue Podcast. It's Thursday, we are live, and I am your host, Ian Croll. Joining me in the Royal Blue studio today to talk all things Everton, we've got Joe Thomas. Joe Thomas, how are things?
Yeah, not too bad. Cheers, Ian. A
Good.
lot better than they were 5 minutes from the end yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely, Chris.
Voices just coming back. I've still got stains of blue from the
pyro.
from the pyro before. There's blue smoke everywhere. Like when I had my shower this morning, the sink was just blue.
Really?
That's it.
In the thick of it?
Yeah.
Like a smurf.
Where would you expect me to be, Chris?
Dedication to the cause of
I
covering
was
Everton.
out there. I didn't get any on me. I went out a bit after Joe, so maybe it was a few rows back from where he was. But incredible. Yeah, even before we get to the match, incredible scenes on Goodison Road there before the kick-off. Yeah. Don't think I said it in the piece that I did. I know Liverpool, their fans have these sort of events themselves from time to time on the big games, but the Arne Slot side won't experience anything like that again this season, and they won't probably experience anything like they did inside the stadium either.
No, absolutely not. And as you can see, if you're watching on YouTube, we have got Chris Beesley next to Joe Thomas as well. So, Chris, yeah, you are all good?
Yeah, I'm okay. You shouldn't. Can't be accused of smiling too much, though, can you?
No celebrating, not too much celebrating as well.
No,
not allowed in the office, to be honest, are we? Not allowed to do that in the office.
You'd never see Jurgen Klopp doing that, or going into the centre circle of a game, or going up to the Kop after a home draw with West Bromwich Albion. So shouldn't be allowed after the last Goodison Park Merseyside Derby after over 130 years, and Everton avoiding Liverpool finishing with a winning record at the ground. So yeah, let's just keep things professional.
Absolutely. I am intrigued as to know whether the red counterparts, the red folk in this office, are going to be watching this podcast live.
Hopefully.
They might try and censor us. You never know.
Yeah.
They might try and censor us.
It's out there now. We're live, aren't we?
We've already had a couple of run-ins this morning with the red side of the red side of the office today, and I think we can say they're not happy. They're not happy, but we're happy. I think that's allowed.
Sorry, they're not happy, but apparently they don't care.
They don't care. Is that what it is? Okay, well, there's no introduction needed for this podcast. We are obviously here to talk about last night's high drama in the Merseyside Derby, in which Everton secured a last-gasp equaliser, much to the delight of Everton fans and much to the annoyance of Arne Slot. He was obviously clearly rattled by what he witnessed. Never seen him actually react like that. Give the game away a little bit. We will come on to that. But as always, give us a thumbs up, drop us a like. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel. Your support is greatly appreciated. We are live, as always. So get involved in the stream, get involved in the live. Drop a comment, leave us some feedback. Let us know what you thought of last night's match. We've just had a little bit of fun there, Joe, which is fair enough, I think, to say. But it was serious matters in the game last night. It was looking, on the back of I thought what was really good Everton performance. It did look like Everton were going to lose the last game at Goodison Park, but this Everton team under David Moyes don't give up, do they? And so it proved.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. I also think it's these Everton fans in this stadium. I think it's everything that combines there that helps to drag it over the line. I nudged Chris about 5 minutes into about maybe 3 or 4 minutes into stoppage time. Just you had the Liverpool fans in the away end saying that they'd won the league there. You had all hope appearing to be lost, as Everton didn't really ever look like they were going to find an equaliser once they went 2-1 behind. Didn't deserve to be 2-1 behind, but once they went 2-1 behind, Liverpool were the better side. But, in those final moments of stoppage time, those final moments of the final Goodison Derby ever, I thought it was really interesting and inspiring to hear the Everton fans, just singing Everton. just and filling the stadium with their own noise, drowning out the away end, and like that was a symbolic moment. And I think that is, as much as anything, evidence of just why that game was more than just about the football. It's why the celebrations at the end are so big. It's not celebrating the draw; it's celebrating the collective experience, the shared experience and the emotion of what Goodison has. And we don't have many more occasions like this to savour coming up. Each and every one of them will be special, and last night's really was. And I thought that, the way in which the Everton fans stuck with the Everton players, and everybody then got their reward at the end with those fantastic scenes. I know there was a bit of a scrap, but even that there are positives to take from it. The heart that was shown, and the fight that was shown, and the ferocity that was shown. Last night, we were there, and we are very, very privileged in this job, because I can't think of anywhere else in the world I'd have rather been last night. And we were there, we witnessed it, and not only did we witness that, but we witnessed a fantastic script play out with a wonderful ending. You couldn't write poetry better than that.
Absolutely. I mean, Chris, for me, it was all about, the last ever Merseyside Derby at Goodison Park. I think a lot of Liverpool fans, from what I can gather, and from what I've spoke about with some Liverpool fans, it's almost like they're thinking that we think they've stopped them from winning the league. We've certainly halted it to an extent. It's not like we're singing "You lost the league at Goodison Park." For Everton, the emotion was, this is probably the last, maybe potentially big moments at Goodison Park to do something special. We didn't think it was going to happen. Certainly when we went 2-1 down, and like Joe said there, Liverpool did kind of go into the ascendancy a little bit, but we never gave up. And regardless of what anyone says, whether you scored a last-minute goal, whether it's an equaliser or a winner against your fierce, bitterest rivals, I don't care what anyone says. If you don't react like that, then you're not in the right game for me.
Yeah, it's just the hypocrisy of it all, isn't it?
Chris Beesley's come out fighting in this podcast. I'm here for it.
I mean, it's mooted tones, I know. But it's almost like more. Yeah,
it's like assassin-like.
It's more powerful, isn't it?
I like it. Maybe just move a bit closer to the mic
so I can actually pick it up. This is going to be a great season for Liverpool. They're, for the first time in 35 years, they're going to be crowned champions of England with fans inside the stadium. But as long as it's not another pandemic. That's not going to change. I've said before the game last night, if Everton won the game, Liverpool's still going to be champions this season. Well done, Arne Slot. That's an amazing job that he's doing, succeeding Jurgen Klopp, and the way he's transitioned that into it. And they should enjoy that. I'm not getting ahead of myself. I will move on to Everton in a moment. But they should enjoy that, because unlike those seasons when they're going hell for leather against Manchester City and it's 96 points and it's not even good enough, blinking you've missed it. It's not like that. They'll win the league. This season. I'm sure it's not going to be a cakewalk. Arsenal will push them close, but I'm sure they'll be champions this season. So they'll have plenty to be cheering then. Might win the next derby at Anfield. They might cheer that as well. They've got the whole. Be careful what I say here, but they've got the whole. They've probably got most of the city behind them, even in the Carabao Cup final. So they've got that to cheer as well. So plenty to cheer for the Reds. But again, I did it in my analysis piece. Coming to Goodison Park, it's a different proposition. There's Liverpool fans all around the world. Wherever you go in the world, there are Liverpool fans. Friend of mine, Dr. David France, who's been on air on the podcast on Goodison Park, my home, he laughed at me and said he likes living in Arizona because there are no cop heights. I don't believe him. I mean, you could be there in the desert, someone will come up in a Liverpool replica shirt. There's Liverpool fans all around the world, but less than a mile away from their stadium, there's a place which is the absolute antithesis of their club, and it's Everton Football Club, and they kept fighting through to the end. And Arne Slot, I didn't know much about Arne Slot, to be honest, because he does seem to be more of an introvert than obviously what Jurgen Klopp was like. And I've not done any press conference. I couldn't do a press conference last night with him in it because obviously he wasn't involved. He wasn't able to. So I don't know in the way, because for a long time, I used to cover Liverpool as well, and I've been to many press conference with Jurgen Klopp. I was at the press conference with Klopp. It was actually previewing a Manchester United game when he compared the Merseyside Derby for Evertonians to being a World Cup final, and then subsequently ended up having a ding-dong with a child when a ball boy remarked that to him. So I didn't expect that from Arne Slot. But again, he's gone across the park and he's lost his head. And they're not my words. They're the words of Chris Bascom from the Telegraph. He said, Arne Slot, the king of Zen, lost his head in the Goodison Park cauldron. And it's amazing what that atmosphere can do. It's not like any other game. I remember, it's going back a long time now, 1988 when Liverpool had the long unbeaten run and they were going for that at Goodison. And the reports at the time saying if it had been any other team in the country, they wouldn't have lost that game. And then it was the fact that it was Everton, and okay, it wasn't a victory for Everton last night, but they just kept on going. And as Joe said, it's both on the field and off the field. And it is, the fans have got them over the line so many times in recent years when it's been, the toughest times for Everton. But I think the difference now is having David Moyes back, because he understands how to get the best out of that Everton crowd, and to really sort of have a team who keep on pushing. The amount of times when we went to speak to him up for the interview, and Emmy was very classy about it. He didn't want to reference other managers, but he spoke about the fact that we asked him about when Everton would come from behind and when he was in charge first time round, and they've done that again. I think somebody actually compared it. I can't remember who this was now. It's almost like the Wizard of Oz, from when it goes from black and white to colour all the time, and that's almost like what it's become now at Everton under David Moyes. And I'll just finish for this bit now on. As you know, I've got a book coming out at the end of the season, Spirit of the Blues, and it's the 100 most memorable matches at Goodison Park. And I was always going to have the last one in there, Everton Southampton. So that was going to be the only one I was going to add this season. I had 99 games in there. I was just going to add the last one against Southampton. That's twice the last couple of weeks. I've had to write new chapters for that book, because we've got Abdoulaye Doucouré scoring the fastest goal in Everton's history, and I've got to put last night in. I've got to put that one in. Yeah. So that's two substitutions I've got to make, and can't pay Moyes any higher sort of accolade than that right now.
Just while you mentioned Slot, let's get him out the way before we start analysing the key points of the game. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I watched his reaction back to the goal. He's come across as this cool, calm, collective manager, person, whatever you want to call him, since he's come in. Completely different to Jurgen Klopp. Obviously, it's been quite easy for him in the sense that Liverpool have won the majority of the games. But his antics on the touchline when Everton obviously scored, for me, I thought I was astounded, because really, when you think about it, okay, the way Liverpool have conceded that goal in the last minute, it's disappointing for them. But it's actually probably still a decent result for them to get that bonus point in the title race, to go 7 points clear. So is it a case of his mask has actually just dropped sooner rather than what people think with regards to Arne Slot?
I'll just have a couple of quote other people here and let Joe have a say, because obviously I had a bit of a lengthy response last time. But this was just in a response to my piece, my analysis this morning. I mentioned about Slot's reaction, and somebody's put here to me, there's a sense of entitlement, arrogance and disrespect about Liverpool which sticks in the craw of Evertonians. I thought Slot was different, but it turns out even he has succumbed to that culture. They don't like it up on New Day, and that was something on Blue Sky replying to me. And then just a general comment on Twitter from Jim Keown, one of the Everton author. He's put, when a patched-up Everton missing most of their creative players and hamstrung by years of PSR-induced austerity score a last-second equaliser against the supposed best team in Europe, which they are at the moment, in the last ever Goodison Derby, how exactly are fans meant to react? But in terms of Slot, yeah, I don't know about the mask slipping, because I said, I don't know Mr. Slot very well at this moment, but he certainly, it surprised me. I'd not seen any sort of indication that he'd been like that before now, but yeah, it's like I said before, it's an entirely different challenge. This is not a classic Everton team. This is far from it. I think they should be doing a bit better than they have been doing this season, but yeah, this isn't one of the all-time great Everton sides, and they're going to probably have a lot more sterner tests on the field, but the whole package of coming to Goodison Park is something entirely different for him, and he reacted in a way that I didn't expect.
I mean, Joe, you want to just analyse the key key points of the game, really. It's the first goal. It certainly took me by surprise. I don't know if it took you by surprise, but the quick free kick, Betto letting it run across him, fantastic finish. It's almost as if I wasn't paying attention, because I kind of just looked up, and next minute Betto's through on goal, and then it's in the back of the net. What was your vantage point, or what was your view of the first goal?
Yeah, well, he'd almost got behind a couple of times already.
Yeah.
I thought it was really interesting because Everton were in the ascendancy. They started well last night, Everton. And we know creativity is a bit of an issue in this side. That's even before you get to finishing, they're creating the chances. But, it is a side that can be energetic and enthusiastic and very physical. And I thought one of the big moments in this game was just a handful of minutes in, really. I thought that Abdoulaye Doucouré wins a header on the halfway line against Virgil van Dijk. And after that, Van Dijk just never settled. He was a figure of frustration throughout that game. This is one of the Premier League's great centre-backs, but he just was at a loss last night. And, not saying that people dragged him all over the place or anything like that, but, moments after that, he went through Betto. And the two of them, Doucouré and Betto, just really, really caused Konate and Van Dijk lots and lots of problems last night. That was clear from the beginning, just like Ndiaye did for the short time that he was on the pitch. It was Ndiaye that won the foul for the goal. Idris Gueye did some really good cleaning up. The man that was probably the hero of the win back in April, Gueye wins the ball, picks it up, threads through Ndiaye, and then McAllister brings him down, and that was it. We saw McAllister we saw Ndiaye get caught a few times, and it was just very clear from the early stages that Everton had players that were causing Liverpool problems, which is something that you wouldn't necessarily expect. You can put Mbappe or Haaland up against Van Dijk and he can swallow them up, but Betto and Doucouré last night, he really struggled. He was just constantly gesturing at his teammates, and he was just clearly very frustrated throughout. Obviously, we saw that on the scenes of the final whistle, and we saw that in his interviews at the end. So that set the tone, really, those early minutes. Goal did come out of nothing, but Everton were probably, they had started that game well. The clarity of thought from Branthwaite, it's a brilliant ball. And not to have the idea one, but then also to execute it as well as he did. Yeah. We spent a lot of time eulogising over James Garner's through ball to Betto against Leicester. This one hasn't had quite so much praise and probably doesn't deserve quite so much praise, but it is a very good moment for that young centre back and for Everton. And we know that if you can get Betto behind the defence, 1-on-1 he's actually pretty good. We saw those two finishes against Leicester, and then we saw that as well. I thought it was interesting because in a moment where it was very clear that so many people on that pitch and in the stands didn't quite know what was going on, they didn't have a grip of what was going on. Like you, I was surprised what happened. Only there were two people that had the clarity of thought. One was Bradford to play the ball, and two, Betto, because it's not just that he reads the pass and makes the run, but the time in which he takes to let the ball kind of run across his body. He must. That wasn't a fluke. He knew where everybody was. It was all full of intent, and the finish was lovely. And those can only be good signs for Everton. Look, is Betto going to be a world beater? Probably not. Is he going to go and get 30 goals a season? Probably not. But what we're seeing from Betto is that if you can play him up against the type of defences where he'll get chances in behind, he may well take them. And if you can have someone up alongside him that can play, when teams drop a bit deeper, and the two of them get 8 or 9 goals a season, all of a sudden it's a different Everton side. I'm really pleased for Betto. Really pleased for him. He's had a good couple of weeks. He struggled against Bournemouth, but a lot of Everton's players struggled against Bournemouth. It was a bad day at the office. This is really important for Everton because going through this next month, they've got so few options going forward. Obviously, those options are even more limited now that it looks like Ndiaye might be injured. Everton really needed to see something better. A player that was probably going to get sold at the beginning of the month, or at least loaned out for a fee that might then be used to bring somebody else in. And now all of a sudden he's where we're pinning our hopes.
Main striker.
But it was it was a very good goal. And I thought Everton, the danger is in the aftermath of a goal that you lose your sense really quickly and you get sloppy. But I thought Everton started the restart pretty well. And one of the first things that happened after that was you had Luis Diaz chasing down a long ball. He just shoves James Tarkowski over. And you're just there and you're looking, Van Dijk's unsettled. Luis Diaz is unsettled. They were unsettled all over the place. So with that being in mind, it was a real shame, and if we're honest, it was poor of Everton to then let Liverpool back in, because they had them where they wanted. You always felt that if Everton were going to get a good result, they needed to score early, or they needed to do something early to kind of seize the initiative. They had it, held on to it, but then they kind of let it go with just one lapse of concentration, and that was a real shame.
Yeah, I mean, it was such a poor goal to concede, I thought, and fair play for McAllister for getting it in. But it's not really a header where you think that's a chance. It's kind of just looped it backwards.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's one of the smallest players on the pitch, and one thing that, when you look at that Everton defence, obviously Mikalenko's out there trying to deal with Salah. When you've got Tarkowski, O'Brien, and Branthwaite there, you'd like to think McAllister isn't going to drift in and get a free header. And unfortunately, that's what happened.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I loved about Betto's goal, obviously other than the finish and the run itself, was his actual step back to just kind of edge himself back on side.
Yeah.
And then he knows the ball's coming, but he's done the step back and he's already away. He's got himself on side from the ball.
He's a chaotic player, and I think that's why Van Dijk found him so tough to deal with. Last night. For all that he and Decore are obviously very good footballers to be in the jobs that they're in, sometimes I think they don't know what they're going to do next. So how can Van Dijk defend against that? He's probably on a similar wavelength to say someone like Haaland or Harry Kane or something. But when you've got someone like that, those agents of chaos around you, and you're in a cauldron of noise. Like I saw Van Dijk pointing to his ears at times if he couldn't hear the players around him, or they couldn't hear him, or things like that. And again, it all just built into an atmosphere which helped Everton, gave Everton that great start, and then it was just a shame that they let it go. With that McAllister goal. After that, it got very bitty, didn't it? I think last 20 minutes of the first half, Liverpool grew into it a little bit more, but neither side was particularly great. I think after it got to one each, it almost like everyone took a step back for a brief second, and the quality and the tactics went out of the game, and then the emotions came into it, which largely suits Everton, or this Everton against this Liverpool side. And there were a few interesting tackles in that period, weren't there? So. Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, Joe's obviously highlighted Betto there as one of the standouts, certainly because of his goal. There was certainly a couple of standouts from my point of view. Or was there anyone that, caught your eye where you thought, he's had an impact?
Well, obviously, if I start with Betto, because as Joe said, in between the Leicester game where he got a brace, like so many of his teammates, it just didn't happen for him against Bournemouth. They had a sniff apart from that one effort that he sort of snatched and shanked. But he has shown, for all that chaotic approach, that he can be a really cool finisher when he gets the right sort of supply line. So I hope it's not too one-dimensional in that respect. But if they can carry on playing through those balls for him, he certainly, in that respect, he's probably a cooler finisher than Dominic Calvert-Lewin 1-on-1, because unfortunately, for all Dom's other strengths, that's been a bit of an Achilles heel for him when he's been sort of played through in those kind of
a lot of people have questioned whether the goals that Betto scored over the past couple of weeks, would Calvert-Lewin have scored them? Obviously, you're never going to know. It's unfair. It's an unfair comparison, but it's an interesting one, though.
Yeah. And I think, as always, my player ratings get scrutinised, and I probably looked at the overall picture. People say, I'm looking at some of the stats with Jared Branthwaite. A game of 7. Some people say he should have got more than that. And to be fair, I think he something like a record number of clearances or something like that. Yeah. But he was there. Unfortunately, on the flip side of that, if you look back on the goals, especially the second one, maybe he could have done a bit more there. So he was immense, wasn't he? And obviously the pass for Betto was as well. But obviously, Starman has to be James Tarkowski. Actually, before going to Tarkowski, Tirarobenham. There's probably been few sort of more important flick-ons in Everton history than that little cameo from him at the end.
For it to go backwards to the side rather than kind of just back to where it's come, or to the keeper as well. Yeah. Like the awareness around him. I mean, I don't know whether it was luck or what, but he certainly, I think he knew exactly what he was doing.
Yeah. And it must have been still not too sure about people saying Betto and Canate in the build up to that. I don't see that one as being a sort of the Stonewall decision that some have claimed. Obviously,
it's for me, I don't think it's Stonewall. However, Jordan, I remember, because you try to think back to the incident of the goal. It all just happened so quick. I did think to myself, he's going to give a free kick there. And then obviously when the goal's gone in and all the celebrations have kind of died down and the checking things, you think they're going to give this as a foul here. Obviously, they were kind of looking more for the offside.
Yeah, certainly didn't compare to the Canate Betto at Anfield last season. But again, some people have convenient memories or lack of them. But yeah, James Tarkowski, obviously.
Zero's a hero in a way.
Well, yeah.
In the space of a week.
And to be fair, I predicted it on Saturday. I mentioned that in my analysis as well. Because obviously it was his lowest ebb on Saturday. Nobody could, even James himself.
He spoke about that to you last night after the match in the tunnel, didn't he?
Yeah. This thing about what I like about James Tarkowski, was it his 100th consecutive start or something in the Premier League? I think it could have been. Obviously, he hasn't missed a Premier League game since he came to the club. And I've been through, because he always comes out. I mean, we laugh about Connor, our colleague Connor O'Neill often does the mix zone for the home games. And we were surprised he wasn't on the wedding list when Tarkowski got married last summer or whatever. So had that many chats with him. Because win, lose or draw, James Tarkowski is the man who typically comes out. Obviously, he was fully justified in being the man who was interviewed last night. But, you know, he's there at the bad moments as well. He always comes out. I spoke to James Tarkowski in the tunnel after Chelsea last season, after the 6-0. He's brutally honest. He always fronts up. Whatever you think of him as a player, he has his ups and downs. Sometimes you think with his aggressiveness, is he a bit reckless? Well, he can be at times. But wears his heart on his sleeve. He's as brave as a lion, an absolute warrior of a man and warrior of a player. Love James Tarkowski in that respect. There's total respect for him, for as a person, as a man, as well as a footballer. So that was lovely to see after what had happened to him. And he admitted family, teammates had to pick him up after Saturday, but that's part of being football. Yeah, mates, you know, it was a terrible day for him. You know, he doesn't want to be doing stuff like that. He was 2 huge mistakes against Bournemouth throughout the FA Cup, but from zero to hero, as it were. I thought he'd had an impressive game anyway, but I asked him, well, first of all, I said, you know, if you hadn't have scored that goal, Liverpool would have finished on a winning record at Goodison after over 130 years. Does that sort of sink in? And he said, I've had to answer a lot of questions there, and he admitted he was struggling at that time, says maybe when I look back, you know, I will think that when I hang up my boots. But what I'd also told him, and he was a lot more emphatic and sure about this, I said, where does that actually... And obviously it's the most important goal you've ever scored, but how does it compare to, in terms of technique, as being your best goal? And he said, yeah. No, there's no dispute that.
Without a doubt.
Rather selflessly, he said, you know, a lot of my goals are horrible goals. Headers from about 2 yards out and stuff like that. So
what was he doing up there, by the way? He's Everton's centre-back and he's up there in the area.
98th minute, whatever it was. And that's another grumble, wasn't it, of course? But how much time was added on? But yeah, what a moment. What a once in, 130 years moment, more than a lifetime. I mean, whatever he does now in football again, I mean, he's got that. And we thought Phil Jagielka's goal at Anfield was obviously a memorable moment. Everton centre-back coming up and scoring with a last-gasp equaliser. But difference was, whereas Jagielka silenced Anfield, Tarkowski's strike, just the roof come off Goodison. And what an incredible moment for him. And what an assured finish. And the ball comes to you in those circumstances. Dixie Dean would have been proud of a strike like that. Incredible.
Absolutely. I mean, Joe, just 2 other players that you can pick anyone you want, but 2 other players who I thought were standouts. Idrissa Gueye was fantastic. He's just, like a fine wine, only getting better with age. It's a different podcast whether we should offer him a new contract or not. The other one was Vitaly Mykolenko, completely different player since David Moyes has come back. He looks stronger, he looks fitter. He's obviously been instructed to continue to do his defensive work without a doubt, and he's got the help of Branthwaite alongside him. But the amount of overlaps now that he does, and the times that he gets forward to help Ndai, say, on the left hand side. Obviously, it was Harrison for the majority of the game yesterday. I just thought those 2. I think Gueye was me man of the match. I think Mykolenko. It's all debatable, obviously, but I think Mykolenko was tremendous as well. Obviously, you could probably say give him one of the assists for the goals as well. I don't know. I'm just trying to pick out positives for individuals, and those 2 stuck to mind.
Yeah, I mean, this is a game that Mykolenko tends to do pretty well in.
Yeah, spot on.
I know that the Salah obviously, got the second goal, but more often than not, Mykolenko excels in the games he tends to excel against the best right wingers, doesn't he? Whenever he comes up against Saka or Salah, those tend to be his best games. And he was very he was good again yesterday, albeit like I say, that post for Salah for the second goal. Obviously, the cross comes in from Salah for the first, so I probably wouldn't quite be as positive as yourself about it. But it was important that he was there for Everton last night. It was important that they were able to get him back because he's a big part of that defence when that defence is at its best. I thought Abdoulaye Doucouré played really well. Not so much in terms of what he did on the ball, but what he did off the ball. That's where you kind of see the advantage of having him on the pitch because he's just so busy. He just gets around everywhere. You can obviously see how much it meant to him at the end, but he was just everywhere, putting pressure, hustling, harrying people. I like the way Lindstrom started. I thought Lindstrom was a big part of the first 15 minutes or so when Everton were on top. Again, he put Robertson and some of the other players around them under a lot of pressure and chased down loose balls. He kind of drifted out of the game after that, but yeah, there were positives. I think that we move on to the second half. Well, just one last thing on Mikolenko. I actually thought that was a really nasty tackle by Bradley on half. It was a yellow card. It was not more than a yellow card, but it was a ball that he was never going to get to. And I think we know that players know what they're doing when they're going in late on players when it was clear there was a bit of intent there, as there was also up the other end of the pitch when Doucouré got his. I was going to say
that was retribution.
Obviously,
wasn't it?
that was obviously retribution. But I think if people want to talk about where the bite from this game came into, I actually think Liverpool were a large part of introducing it to himself, possibly because they weren't quite having it all their own way. I thought that was poor from Bradley, and I thought there's a case to say that Idrissa Gueye could have got a second yellow, but there's certainly a case to say that Bradley could have got a second yellow. I thought for a second time in 3 derbies, Liverpool have had the luxury of being shown leniency to a player that's already on a yellow card at a significant period in the game. For him to kind of escape punishment for the second foul, and then just like Jurgen Klopp did with Konate on around the hour mark at Anfield last year with that game still goalless, Arne Slot did the same with Conor Bradley last night and took him off. Again, 2 substitutions that spoke volumes because those players' managers knew that they were at the very least they were walking a tightrope, and in reality they're probably lucky to still be on the pitch. So it would have been interesting to see. I've seen a lot of complaints about the referee from the Liverpool side of things. I've seen some from the Everton side of things as well. I actually thought he refereed relatively well. I thought there are lots of 50-50s, but I don't think it was a clear foul by Betto on Konate for the goal. And I also think that when you look at the way you look at the scope with which Oliver allowed Konate in particular to be physical with Betto on the halfway line. Betto I think is someone who's a bit unfortunate. He doesn't get many fouls, Betto. I mean, we've seen it with a few penalty shouts that he's had. He had most recently been the one against Leicester where he was taken out. Referees don't seem to like him or the way he goes down or whatever it is. They're not convinced by him. And I thought that he was dealt with quite physically on 6-1, half a dozen of the other. But if you're going to be like that all game, you can't then all of a sudden turn around in the 98th minute and all of a sudden say, a glancing nudge is the be all and end all. And
apparently you can.
It certainly wasn't a clear and obvious error. But the thing that really surprised me about this game was I thought halftime suited everybody. Everyone had lost their heads by that point. Tactics had gone out the window. It was all emotional. Everybody just needed to have a breather. What really surprised me is that for the first 25 minutes of the second half, Liverpool just didn't show up. There was no intent. There was no ambition. It's probably the best side in the world for the first 6 months of this season. And they're playing against an Everton side that, as much as we love them and want them to do well, is, the gulf is huge between those the 2 clubs. I think anybody, even your most fervent blue who's listened to this, couldn't really deny that.
David Moyes said that in his
press
match.
And I really couldn't understand. I mean, maybe it wasn't all through choice, maybe because of what Everton were doing to them, but there was just a lack of authority and a lack of ambition from Liverpool for the first 20 minutes of that second half, which I found puzzling because we all know that if they perhaps played the opponent rather than the occasion, there should only really be one winner there. So that confused me. Obviously, played into Everton's hands, but it confused me. And whilst I know that there is a license to sit back against Everton because they don't have the attacking weapons to really hurt you, and you can perhaps, we've seen so many lesser clubs do this season already, almost concede the ball to Everton and let Everton put balls into your box or have the ball around the halfway line and just bank that they're not going to create that killer chance. Haven't had a few chances. The Decore header, had the one where Tarkowski kind of pulled it back to Decore on the edge of the area. He couldn't quite get his knee over the ball, but it just felt really strange to me that Liverpool kind of went down that route. And I think that again, being asked, been on the radio a few times. I've been on Radio 2, Radio 4. You're talking about Goodison, and I just think that it just shows how Goodison can have an impact. It is a 12th man. It can get to teams. It can be a leveller. My opening line to my match report last night, my verdict piece, was the fact that Everton will always be able to, because of that draw, Everton will always be able to say they won the last Merseyside derby. They were the last team to win a Merseyside derby at Goodison. And that feels quite poignant. That everybody had that moment back in April last year, and it isn't, albeit a defeat last night, and certainly a narrow one in those circumstances wouldn't have undermined it. It would have taken a little bit of a shine off. Well, now that April night is protected in all its glory. And I think that whilst that was a win out of the blue, and Everton haven't exactly got a great winning record over the past decade against Liverpool at Goodison Park, one thing that you can always say is that Goodison Park has always been a very difficult place for Liverpool to come to. There's been so many draws under Klopp, and then obviously there was the win last season, and then you've lost the league at Goodison Park and things like that, and then even last night with that last minute equaliser, an equaliser that Everton deserved, and if you had to pick a side that deserved to win, it would be Everton. And it just shows, and I think this is one of the reasons why it means so much, the way in which things unfolded last night, that Liverpool have had some great sides over the past 10, 12 years, some of their best sides, and obviously they've got some of the silverware to show for it. But one thing that they've never been able to do, despite Everton simultaneously going through their lowest moments, hitting the nadir, hitting rock bottom, the last few years, 3 years have been reporting on this club, and let's be honest, they've been miserable, haven't they? But I've never reported on Liverpool winning at Goodison Park, and that's it. No matter how much that disparity, no matter how much that gulf has been in between those two sides, they've never been able to turn Goodison Park into their own plaything. They've always come here. They've always got a bloody nose. It's not, you can't even say that about Old Trafford, where they've gone and been rampant on occasions. There are clubs that have had far better times over far more recent years where they've gone and run roughshod over them. They've never been able to do that at Goodison, and last night was one kind of final bloody nose to say, you know what, like, you're just not having it easy, and this is what we can do to you. That's it. I thought, it was great for the game to end that way, but Everton deserved it. I didn't see him get back after the goal went in, and it was a poor goal to concede it. I know you mentioned about Branthwaite's header. I don't know what the communication was between Tarkowski and Pickford, but obviously Tarkowski sticks his leg out, and Pickford would have swallowed up that ball, wouldn't he? I think it might have been a difficult one to judge and that. But after the goal, Liverpool were at their best for 20 minutes, however long it was after the goal. That was the point where they had some authority and they had the ascendancy. And really, again, another moment that we haven't mentioned, but Pickford makes a really, really good save at 2-1 really late on. Is it from Salah? I think it is. It wasn't one of his best saves, but it was a good save, and it was an important save because without that, you don't have the chance to go and equalise. But there was a lot to like about Everton last night, and they deserved the point, and Everton deserved to have that moment. It was a fitting finale for what is one of the great fixtures in football at one of football's most iconic venues, and I hope that. I think we can easily get distracted by the online debate around football. It can be quite toxic at times, and obviously it's often not that representative of what the true fan base is for any side is, Liverpool or Everton. But I think as the dust settles, hopefully everyone, and I mean it's been a bit of a struggle to kind of convince people of this, but everyone can just see that night for the beauty of what it was. We don't have to have all this point scoring about celebrating a draw and things like that. That was football at its best. Yeah. That shared experience at the end, those moments of joy that you get from nothing. I mean, that's if we're not here for that, I know there's only a select privileged few that can point to winning silverware as the measure of their happiness when it comes to supporting a football club. There are very, very few sides that can do that. They're very lucky and fair play to them. Hopefully Everton get to that point maybe one day in the future. But, it's so easy to lose the greater meaning of football within all that. And I don't know how anybody who actually loves football or loves any sport can look at those moments at the end and not go, you know what, like, fair play, like that.
You're just jealous.
Yeah,
Well,
that's all
no,
it is.
I don't think it's necessarily even even jealousy. It's just perspective, isn't it? Everyone has a different perspective and things like that. But that was a big moment, and it was right. And I think that really, when you look at the consensus for most of the footballing world, is there's only one side that they're agreeing with. If you get the chance, there's Max Rushton's written a piece for The Guardian about it today, and it's brilliant, just talking about the fan who was waving the flagpole after the equaliser, and just what we all go through in life and what football means to us. And it's moments like that can, moments of levity like that can help get us through all sorts of things. And that's what we're all there for.
Absolutely.
TED Talk over.
Should we just address the so-called controversies? I mean,
okay.
Joe's obviously touched upon the referee a little bit. He seems to think that he refereed the game, fairly and okay. I don't disagree with that, to be honest. I think in a derby like that, high emotion, you're not going to please everybody, are you, really? Let's face it. I think if you send them Bradley off, you're probably going to have to send Gay off for, consistency and stuff like that.
A little bit like that. I do think, as I say, with the Mikolenko thing, I mean, I know it doesn't necessarily work like this. I do think the sum, if you were to add up the fouls, the sum of Bradley's is far in excess of Gay's, because I thought it was a bit snide.
But he was booked. Remember, he was booked at one point, and then there was another challenge in the second half. I can't remember exactly what he did, but I just remember it was like he should be going there. That should be a second yellow. I think Diaz wasn't even booked, and he was persistent fouling all night.
I thought McAllister was fortunate not to get booked.
Yeah.
I thought McAllister was probably Liverpool's best player, but I was surprised he hadn't been booked by half time, and you never know. Those little things can matter. If he gets booked after 30 minutes, then probably does have a bit of an impact on what he does for the next 60, doesn't it? So, but
no, I just think, like I say, the referees, whether it's Oliver or anyone's never going to please both fan bases, are they?
No.
I think all this talk about how he was so in favour of Everton is just completely ridiculous, Chris. To be honest, I just think that is absolutely the most ridiculous take, and it's just Liverpool fans, sour grapes. If I'm being totally honest, so if you want to address that as well as the again, they're talking about the added injury time.
Yeah.
It was 5 minutes. We obviously went into the eighth minute where we scored. But if you look at that again, there was a collision between Branthwaite and Alcaraz, which added time on, and then quite clearly Van Dijk and Alisson were both time wasting within that 5 minutes as well, and he clearly indicated to his watch that he was adding time on for the time wasting that they were doing. So they're the controversies that the Liverpool fans and probably Slot and everyone else is kind of moaning about. What did you make of it?
Yeah, if you're going to make the game saying it's hinging on those moments,
He's back to assassin mode here, aren't you?
You're clutching at straws. That wasn't the way you won it. I mean, Oliver's performance, there's a lot of things you're like, I don't know about that, but it's no more than any other referee in any other given week at Goodison Park in that respect. Yeah, it's incredible, really. As Joe said, the general sort of feeling in the football world, everyone else thought it was a magical moment, and no less than Everton deserved. Yeah, if you're going to make it about petty stuff like that, the referee knows what he's doing with the timekeeping, and I've had it loads of times the other way. You can't. You're never going to win an argument with somebody who's going to be like that, because they're going to have their own sort of narrative and talking riddles. So it's not worth bothering with people like that. I've said it's been mentioned that I brought up Mark Clattenburg and the derby, and I could have, I don't know, probably brought up more incidents than I've got fingers on my hands over the years, various big calls. But yet again, when it goes the other way, we can't have that. But no, the referee wasn't the reason why Everton got a point or Liverpool didn't get 3 points last night. No, that's a very sort of skewed take on things. Obviously, we're all going to look at this through our Everton prism or our Liverpool prism or our neutral sort of perspective. But no, it was an incredible moment. And I did what the papers said, the national media roundup. We have Joe's verdict in there as well from the Echo and all the nationals. And I mean, some of those, in their own personal life are Liverpool fans. Some aren't. Some are Evertonians. Whatever. Got the full spectrum. But the whole sort of narrative around the game was it was an incredible game and a fitting way to finish Merseyside derbies at Goodison Park. And considering that as we've been fair here and we said Liverpool are probably the best team in the world right now. But they didn't really show it at Everton last night, and Everton didn't let them. Wasn't a game high on quality, but what it was high on was an emotion and passion, and that's what makes the difference and what made it so special. Like I said, those incredible scenes at the end. Paul Wheelock, our colleague, has done a piece on the so-called celebration police. Again, it's like I said, it's just the hypocrisy over it all. And as Joe pointed out quite rightly, so it's easy when. It seemed like Liverpool, they can almost win the Carabao Cup most years without trying. They've won a couple of finals against Chelsea the other year without scoring a goal. And yet there they are with all they raided the party shops and got the 30 balloons and all of that last night. And yet they get mortally wounded when Abdoulaye Doucouré has a bit of a celly in front of him after the final whistle. And Big Curtis has to wade in, and as all teammates do to support their colleagues. But I know you can't have it both ways, can you? And no, it wasn't won or lost or drawn by the referee last night. And I think it was sort of tenuous. Any sort of point and think about it. And to be fair, I listened to our blood red colleagues earlier, and certainly Joe Rimmer particularly was very fair about the referee's performance and pointed out what a difficult job it is because, good or bad, many top referees and opposition managers have said over the years, Howard Webb and Mourinho, Wenger, all of them have said what a difficult atmosphere it is to referee at Goodison Park. And just finally on that point, actually, at the messages from friends saying, was it sad? A friend of mine asked last night. We've been the last Goodison Derby, and quite rightly so. People have said that the new stadium, which Joe and I, along with 10,000 others, will be fortunate enough to be the new.
And me.
Yeah, and Ian as well. I'll be there on Monday for the first game there. But as much as I've seen it be emotional leaving Goodison Park, it's long overdue, and I'm looking forward to it because it's the people who make that stadium. You think about where Everton could have been. Everton could have easily been in the Championship now. If it hadn't been for Abdoulaye Doucouré and various other near misses. They could have been out in Kirby, but next to a Tesco. They're going to be on the banks of the Mersey and an iconic stadium. It's going to have all the best elements of Goodison Park. It's going to be intimate. The stands are going to be on top of you, but it's not going to have all the pillars and all the bad things that Goodison Park has got. So it's just those people are just going to move 2 miles up the road to the waterfront at Vauxhall there. And I personally think hopefully it's going to be like Goodison Park, but better. Okay, you're not going to have the character of a ground which is over 130 years old, but it's not like that. All the stands have been rebuilt since then. I'm hoping it'll have the best elements of Goodison, without any of those bad elements. And you think of what the stadium Everton could have been playing in. They're so fortunate. It's actually a really big chance here, and of course to be playing in front of the biggest regular crowds in the club's history as well. So I'm hoping that you can get all that Goodison magic that we experienced last night and actually transport that into something which is bigger, better, and more modern and comfortable going forward.
I mean, just on the refereeing controversies, I just think it's clear. Last night, it was clear evidence of probably how much Liverpool get decisions, and when they don't get the decisions, it clearly irks them. And that goes for any big team who win a lot of games. When you don't win, when you win more often than not, and then you draw or you lose, it probably hurts that little bit more. And quite clearly, Liverpool, I don't want to say they can't take it as such, but it quite clearly got under the skin. And I think you mentioned it before. I did mention it off air, is that they played the occasion rather than the game, Liverpool. And I think credit to Everton, credit to David Moyes, credit to the fans with regards to that. We might as well talk about the final whistle scenes. I mean, fantastic scenes. If once we scored the goal, the celebrations were, for me, up there with some of the best that I've been involved in and that I've witnessed. And I was, grateful to be a part of all of that. It'll live long in the memory. I don't care what anyone says, regardless whether it's a win or a draw. But Decore goes obviously off celebrating towards the Liverpool fans. Curtis Jones follows. He's extremely annoyed with Abdoulaye Decore. We're obviously going to be expecting. Well, first of all, Decore gets a red card, a second yellow, and so does Curtis Jones. Slot gets a red card as well. We're expecting retrospective action, if not already a response from the Premier League.
For what? For Decore?
Well, for Decore.
I don't know if there'll be anything more from Decore. He deserved the second yellow card.
We're not getting a fine for failing to control players or anything like that.
I'll come on to that. Decore, and you can understand why he got his second yellow card. It was nice to see there being so much emotion. When the goal was given a few minutes early, he ran the width of the pitch from the VAR monitor to the dugouts, just screaming. It was quite a sight to behold, really. But those scenes at the end. Let's be honest. I hate to see football. We love to see it, don't we?
We're allowed to say it.
You do, don't you? I think so.
Only being honest.
But I completely. I think Jones was fair enough to react like he did, but it was also right that he got booked and got sent off. I like that Charlie Alcaraz was over there. I think he's going to be someone that might tap into the. He's only got 6 more games to try and do it, but I think he might do. Attach himself to the to the Goodison spirit pretty well. So, one of them. But it was always going to be a lot of emotion, wasn't there? And within all that, there were just a few funny moments, weren't there? You had Decore shushing, Van Dijk, and there was a moment where you see Jake O'Brien just wades into the melee, just extricates Decore from it, and from out of nowhere, Darwin Núñez tries to confront him. He just pushes him back.
He does, yeah.
He just schools him, doesn't he?
Yeah.
It's that's it. You think, what? If this was a fight, I'd probably want more of the Everton lads on my side.
Oh, don't say that. It'd be upsetting them more, Joe.
The Liverpool lads. But that's just one of those things. But I think you're right there, Ian. I'd be surprised if there isn't some sort of retrospective, accusation from the football authorities that there was a failure to control the players from both sides. I don't think anybody would necessarily say that would be a contentious call either. So obviously where we go from there will be interesting. So
yeah, we'll see what happens.
But then after that, there were lots of nice things, weren't there? You see Betto in front of the Gladys Street again. That
lap of honour, by the way, was
that
incredible.
lap of honour was phenomenal.
Where did he get the energy from that?
No, because he had been involved in the fight as well. He's just everywhere, wasn't he?
G'd up.
That's it. But then just 10 minutes later, the press box is packed. For the derby, and the reality is when it's like that, and only every other person can type at once, because you just don't have the space for everybody to be the arm space. It's mad. But at the end, kind of getting yourself out of there just takes forever, because you got the old wooden seats and things like that. But the byproduct of that meant we were able to just sit there and just take in those thousands of supporters who stayed late to, sing. Guess what they call it? Guess what? Guess that's what they call it. Sing with Elton
that's
John.
why they call us the Blues. Easy for you to say, John.
Have that moment, and then what I found really nice was probably about 20 minutes after the final whistle, 25 after everything cleared. As most of the fans were in the concourses, the noise that you heard coming from the concourses was chants of Everton. And it might sound like a strange thing to hone in on, but so often I've waited for the stadium to clear so I can go down to the press box this season, and it has been Brighton fans that you can hear celebrating in the concourse. It has been Southampton fans in the Carabao Cup. It has been Bournemouth fans in the league. It has been Brentford fans celebrating 0-0 when they've had 10 men for an hour. Goodison has had too many of those miserable moments in its farewell campaign, and it's just glorious that, albeit it wasn't a win, at least when on the biggest occasion of them all, the players and the fans, everyone stepped up and delivered something that we can all remember very fondly, and everybody could have that experience walking out the stadium.
Just on Elton John song, I guess why they call it the Blues. Our Echo colleague Or our Echo, our colleague and Liverpool writer, Paul Gorse, you'll have known this from watching the Hood Red podcast. He was astounded that we played the Elton John song because he didn't realise that it was synonymous with Everton Football Club. That just goes to prove how much of a bubble they are in, and that they've been
saying that for over 40 years. He had the banner at the 1984 FA Cup final against Watford when obviously Elton John was their chairman. And sorry, Elton, I guess that's why they call us the Blues. So yeah, I think that's longer than I think Mr. Gorse was before he was born. It's been, I don't know. Yeah,
if you know your history,
years, there you go. We'll have to buy a copy of my book, won't he, when it comes out?
I'm conscious of time, so just try and fit a few more things in. What did you make of Virgil van Dijk's, which I thought very disrespectful comments with regards to saying, what did he say, something along the lines
of... I don't know, you have to tell me first.
No, he said it's like it's their cup final, isn't it? I just think it's disrespectful in the sense that Everton's season is by no means over, and it was actually a vital point in, Everton's, fight for relegation. It's a disrespectful comment to teams down in the league. Like, the teams at the lower league don't matter, because if you're not fighting for Europe, or if you're not trying to challenge to the title, then you're meaningless. That's not what the league's about. There's 20 teams in the league all fighting for various things, and Virgil van Dijk, just again in his Liverpool bubble, just can't see that, in my opinion. Very disrespectful.
Yeah, I don't really think it's something that's worth getting wound up about from an Everton perspective, because I think it shows how much of a job that they did on Liverpool last night. Like, I think that, at the end of it, look, Virgil van Dijk's a great player, and he's got a nice little trophy haul to show for it, and he will probably add more to that this season. But the reality is that he's coming out with statements like that in a fit of emotion because he's clearly gutted as the way in which that match has ended at the end, and that's all credit to Everton. This idea that somehow, again, we come back to it, that Everton shouldn't take any joy or satisfaction from that. From a last minute equaliser. Well, look, we know that Everton have ambitions to be scoring last-minute winners, not equalisers. Of course, we know that's what the hope is, to get back to something along those lines. But for the time being, Everton can't do that. But, this is an Everton side that, in the last minutes of the last ever derby at Goodison Park, against their fiercest rivals, chasing the game, when David Moyes looks to his bench, his last option is a 39-year-old veteran makeshift fullback who he's going to play on the wing. This is against this all-conquering Liverpool side. And yet this all-conquering Liverpool side couldn't find an answer to it. And we can celebrate that, and we can celebrate the meaning that comes with that goal and the shared experiences that flow from it and the wider meaning of that night to us in Goodison. And we can let them try and justify it to themselves, how they let slip a glorious opportunity to inflict a blow on Everton at Goodison Park in that final derby. The ultimate reality is they failed to do so, and I think as a result of that, they're throwing emotions around now because they got caught up in experience, everything that they didn't want to do, and say that they don't want to get dragged into. Well, there's your proof. So let's take joy from that. It's a positive sign of what Everton were able to do last night.
Definitely. I mean, let's finish off on a positive as well, Chris. Obviously, the whole thing is a positive with the way the match finished. But in terms of Goodison Park itself, which, it was incredible scenes, as we've mentioned. We obviously know that we're going to get Goodison's final game in the coming months. Yeah. Southampton, currently scheduled for 18th of May. That could change. We don't know. However, for me, for that one, I feel like that's more of a kind of a goodbye. Yeah. To Goodison Park, and we don't know how it's going to pan out. It's obviously going to be emotional in that sense of saying goodbye, but this was different. In a way, that's kind of going to be a little bit manufactured. This is completely, like the Liverpool game last night, and that goal is completely different from me. You can't manufacture that. It was kind of a one-off. Is that going to be Goodison Park's kind of final moment in a way for you?
Let me just do this while I remember now.
Got the quotes coming out.
No, it's not a quote this time. Now it's just because it's on the weekend of that final game where I had to remember we're going to do this. Just a big shout out here for an Everton event on that final weekend at 16th of May. It's at 7 p.m. At 50 Brunswick Street, and it's the two most prolific living Everton goal scorers, Graham Sharp and Bob Latchford, at the Bentley, 50 Brunswick Street. £55 a head. It says here includes a superb buffet as well. So just to call 077 86 570 825 for that one. That would be an incredible event. Bob Latchford lives over in Germany now. Very seldom comes over. So just a plug for that one. That somebody had asked me that one. But yeah, in terms of, like you say, in terms of not manufactured, but like you say, I mean, Southampton, it could be an incredible game. Hopefully it is. I'm sure it'll be hugely emotional anyway, whatever goes on the pitch. But you don't know. It might, Southampton could be relegated by then. Hopefully Everton are well safe by then, and it'll be more about the event of, like you say, saying goodbye to Goodison, whereas this was all about that moment, and it was a moment, because if James Tarkowski hadn't nailed that shot in the 98th minute, Evertonians would want to forget about this, wouldn't they? I mean, it was a poor game. Liverpool had not played up to their own stellar standards, yet would have gone on and got the win. And also, you can't play down this saying it wouldn't matter. They'd have been going on about that forever. If they'd not, until it was time for Everton to build another new stadium in the city, they'd have been going on about that. The fact, they talk about bragging rights, whatever. And it would be a genuine thing to talk about. That they'd have, over that 130 years, if they'd won more Goodison derbies than Everton, you telling me they wouldn't have mentioned it? It would have been mentioned every time there was a derby. So to prevent that's what it was. It was a moment, wasn't it? It was everything. It was 130 years or more of playing football were boiled down to that virtually last kick of the game for James Tarkowski to nail that shot. So yeah, you don't know what's going to lie ahead. Maybe the last night match, mightn't it? I don't know what's going to happen with the Southampton game or what time the kickoff will end up being. But I think, is it all right as it stands, Joe? It's potentially the last night game at Goodison, that one now.
There's no other schedules.
So, yeah.
It's news for TV.
So at the moment, I don't know whether... Hopefully there's going to be some more great moments, because like I said, under David Moyes, it's totally changed around. Those first half of the season, that was what we were bemoaning. That's what we were so frustrated about. For all that stellar job that Sean Dijk had done in those really tough circumstances the last couple of years, just hadn't worked for him this season. And he kept saying expectations went that way, money went that way. But he had a stronger side than last season. And they weren't getting the results for Goodison Park last season, but they weren't producing the performances either. Whereas already... In fact, the Tottenham Hotspur 3-2 should have been more convincing, but still hold on for a exciting victory. They've had the 4-0 blitz against Leicester City, and like I've already mentioned, fastest goal from an Everton player in 147 years of the club's existence. And now we've got this with them pulling that one out the bag in the last second of the last ever derby at Goodison Park. So there's every chance there could be some more memorable moments. Got the Manchester United game still to come up, big games like that. And we just don't know. Hopefully there will be some big moments, because David Moyes knows how to get both out of these Everton players and this Everton crowd. And I don't think there'll be anything quite like that again. But who knows? Can't rule out. And hopefully some more highlights before we wave goodbye to the grand old lady.
I think in a way things would have to go drastically wrong or drastically right to get something on par with that. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I think we're kind of... I'm not saying we want the season to just peter out or anything like that. We've still got a lot of work to do. Who knows what could happen if we keep on winning.
Just want it to be pleasant now, don't you? Rather than
Well, it's like you said. It's like you said all season. I think we're not quite there yet, but we're starting to get in a position now where we can actually give Goodison Park the send off it actually deserves. And we've had that moment now. We'll never forget it. The send off hopefully will come on the Southampton game, whenever that may be. Well, obviously, we know it's going to be around the 18th, but if they change it.
And also, so much to say before we finish, see a massive point for Everton in terms of their position in the Premier League table, because their game in hand. What's it now? Is it 10 points and a superior goal difference? So this was the game in hand, and everyone kept saying, "Oh well, it's against Liverpool, or it's against Liverpool." Almost like you could go backwards, maybe you could get pummeled and erode into that goal difference. Obviously, you've still got a massive gap there, but that's now 10 points in the game in hand. And a way, Paul Joyce actually from the Times made a really good point. It actually takes both clubs closer to where they want to be. They haven't derailed Liverpool's Premier League title bid. I'll tell you now, Liverpool will be champions this season. That's what's going to happen. I'm not crying it in. And the fact that this hostilities will be resumed at the new stadium, hopefully next season, then it's a point closer to that. If you look where they were when the Freaking Group had to make the change there and replace Sean Dyche, only 17 points from the first half of the Premier League season. That was on the trajectory to finish with less points than they did at the start of Dyche's first season, which was the lowest equivalent points total in the club's history. They were in dire straits at that point as we started the new calendar year. David Moyes has just turned everything around, and he's brought back the Everton that the supporters know and the supporters love.
Absolutely. I think just on that, that's why I felt like the Van Dijk comments were quite disrespectful, because Everton have still got a lot to play for, regardless of whether it's a relegation battle. That's not, that's nothing to do with Virgil van Dijk and Liverpool's title push. Everyone's got a reason for being in that league, and currently, unfortunately for us, our reason is to survive and stay in that league. I think if we'd been out the cup and we'd already been safe and we were just seeing the season out, I could understand his comments a little bit then. You might be able to say those comments in the Anfield Derby coming up. We might be safe by then, and who knows. Final thoughts, Joe. We'll finish off now, but obviously we're all happy, not just because of last night, but like Chris said, we've got an extra point, 10 points clear of the relegation zone now. Goal difference is far superior than anyone below us, which is probably, you can add on another point in a sense with regards to that. Maybe 1 or 2 more wins and Everton will find themselves safe.
Yeah, I think so. There's some winnable games coming up. The big question now is it Ndiaye's fitness?
Yeah.
And really, with the right results, Everton could probably be safe by the March international break, but the reality is they're probably not going to get any of the more seriously injured players back before then. So if we add Ndiaye to that list, if there was clear concern from David Moyes when I spoke to him last night after the game about this, then Everton really, what is already a paper-thin squad is really on its knees. So Everton are going to need some players to step up, because obviously Abdoulaye Doucouré is going to be suspended as well for the weekend. So this could be one of those, I'd have no doubt that Everton are going to stay up, but this might be one of those little periods over the next few weeks where they just have to kind of grind their way through it a little bit, because the paucity of options that are going to be available to David Moyes. So it's going to be an interesting few weeks. So we'll have to wait and see. But Everton have all the momentum right now, and 10 points and a better goal difference is a lot for anybody to make up. So, and the games, the fixtures work quite well for Everton during this period. So fingers crossed they can get 1 or 2 more wins. Just carry on building, which is the project that Moyes has started.
Absolutely. Okay, well, tomorrow we have got a Friday show. I'm giving Chris and Joe the day off from the podcast. I know you haven't got the day off, Joe. You are going to be at the press.
I'm glad to hear that, given that I do actually have a day off tomorrow. So, yeah, it's good to hear.
It's going to be me, it's going to be Connor O'Neill, and it's going to be Paul Wheelock. So we obviously probably have the final word on the Merseyside Derby, but we'll also look ahead to Crystal Palace. Everton facing somewhat of a selection crisis with suspension, obviously, Doucouré
injuries. Not sure how much of a selection crisis if you've only probably got 11 players. Yeah, it's going to be tough, isn't it?
So. Yeah, so David Moyes' press conference will be an interesting morning. I guess it's tomorrow afternoon at some point.
It's in the morning,
isn't it? 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Early one tomorrow.
Yeah.
Oh, he's changing it around all the time, isn't he?
Mixing it up.
Unbelievable. It's probably a good job that you're not on the pod then, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is all for today's show. Please remember to give us a like and subscribe to the channel. Drop us some 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Most importantly, enjoy the rest of your day, enjoy the rest of your week. I've been Ian Croll, joined by Joe Thomas and Chris Beesley, and this has been the Royal Blue Podcast.